The future of Anya had never seemed brighter. The cooperative was thriving, and the village had transformed from a quiet, isolated community into a bustling hub of activity. However, as with all success stories, the road ahead was not without its obstacles. Kwesi sat at his desk one evening, his fingers tapping the edge of the wooden table nervously. The wind held outside, and the sky had darkened with an impending storm. The growth of the cooperative had drawn attention, both positive and negative. While many neighboring villages admired Anya's success, there were others who felt threatened by the changes Kwesi and Madame Abina had introduced. The first sign of trouble had come when a powerful trader from a nearby town, Kwame Mensah, had arrived in Anya. Kwame, known for his ruthless business practices, had once dominated the local agricultural market. He saw the rise of Anya's cooperative as a direct threat to his business. For weeks, he had quietly undermined Kwesi's efforts, slandering the cooperative in private conversations, spreading rumors about its supposed instability and untrustworthiness. At first, Kwesi had ignored the whispers. He believed that the cooperative's success would speak for itself. But when Kwame started poaching farmers from the cooperative, offering them higher prices for their crops and promising better deals, Kwesi knew it was time to take action. One morning, as the sun rose over Anya, Kwesi received word that several of the cooperative's key members had left to join Kwame Mensah's trading network. The news hit Kwesi hard. These were farmers who had been instrumental in building the cooperative, people who had trusted him and embraced his vision. Their defection felt like a personal betrayal. He called an emergency meeting of the cooperative, hoping to address the situation before it spiraled out of control. As he stood before the villagers, a sense of unease filled the air. He could see the doubt in their eyes, the fear that they had invested too much into something that might fail. "We've heard the rumors," Kwesi began, his voice steady, though his heart was heavy. "Some of our own have left to work with Kwame Mensah, and there's talk that the cooperative is failing. I won't lie to you, I'm frustrated. But I'm not here to make excuses. I'm here to face this challenge head-on, just as we've faced every challenge before." He paused, allowing his words to sink in. "The rumors are false. The cooperative is not in trouble. We've had setbacks, yes, but setbacks are a part of growth. And we will overcome this. Together." Madame Abina, who had arrived at the meeting to offer her support, stepped forward. "Kwesi is right. We will not let the actions of a few individuals tear apart what we've built. The cooperative is a reflection of all of us, our hard work, our shared dreams, and our dedication to one another." The villagers murmured, but Kwesi could see that the doubt in their eyes had not completely faded. There was a palpable tension in the room, and Kwesi knew that the time for words was over. It was time for action. Kwesi and Madame Abina wasted no time formulating a plan to win back the trust of the villagers and counter Kwame's influence. The first step was to reach out to those who had left the cooperative. Kwesi personally visited each of the former members, apologizing for the recent tension and reassuring them of the cooperative's long-term vision. He reminded them of the success they had achieved together and how their departure could harm the community. At first, many were resistant. They had already been promised better deals by Kwame and felt they could earn more working independently. But Kwesi, with the help of Madame Abina, crafted a new deal, one that offered even greater benefits for those who stayed with the cooperative. This included better access to resources, guaranteed pricing, and even a share in the profits from the cooperative's future expansion into new markets. Slowly but surely, the farmers who had left began to return. It wasn't just the promise of better deals that brought them back, but the sense of unity and solidarity they had once felt within the cooperative. They realized that while Kwame Mensah's offers might have seemed enticing, they lacked the long-term vision that Anya's cooperative represented, a vision of collective success and shared prosperity. With more members returning, Kwesi and Madame Abina began to address the rumors that had been spreading about the cooperative's instability. They organized a series of open meetings where villagers could voice their concerns, ask questions, and discuss the future of the cooperative. Transparency was key, and Kwesi made sure that no issue was swept under the rug. At the same time, Kwesi began to strengthen the cooperative's relationships with other villages. He reached out to neighboring communities, offering to share the knowledge and resources that had made Anya's cooperative successful. Slowly, more villages began to see the value in Kwesi's approach. The cooperative wasn't just a local project, it was a model for rural communities across the region. But even as things began to stabilize within the cooperative, the shadow of Kwame Mensah loomed large. He was not a man who would give up his grip on the market easily. The tension came to a head when Kwame Mensah himself arrived in Anya one fateful afternoon. He stood at the entrance to the new market, surrounded by his entourage, his expensive clothes and fine jewelry a stark contrast to the humble clothing of the villagers. He had come to make one final attempt to take control of the market. Kwesi stood in the center of the market, his eyes fixed on Kwame. The two men locked eyes, and for a moment, time seemed to slow. Kwame's lips curled into a smug smile as he stepped forward, his voice carrying through the crowd. "Kwesi, my old friend," Kwame said, his tone dripping with mockery. "I see you've built quite the little empire here. But you must know that empires, just like crops, can be uprooted." Kwesi took a deep breath, refusing to be intimidated. "I've worked hard for everything this village has achieved, Kwame. And I will not let anyone, least of all you, destroy what we've built. The cooperative is stronger than your money, stronger than your threats. We are a community, and no amount of manipulation will break us." Kwame sneered, his eyes narrowing. "You think this is about community? This is about business. And I've played the game longer than you. I'm the one who controls the market, not you." Kwesi stepped forward, his voice unwavering. "Not anymore. You see, Kwame, the people of Anya are not just customers, they are partners. And together, we are building something far greater than your empire. We're building a future." The crowd, sensing the finality of the confrontation, rallied behind Kwesi. The cooperative had not just survived, it had grown stronger through adversity. The people of Anya stood united, and their resolve was clear. Kwame Mensah, seeing that his influence over the village was waning, turned on his heel and walked away, defeated. With Kwame's departure, the cooperative entered a new phase of growth. The rumors that had once threatened to tear them apart were silenced, and the people of Anya were more united than ever. Their success in overcoming external threats proved that the strength of the cooperative lay not just in its resources, but in its community. Kwesi's leadership had been tested, and though the road had been difficult, it had only made him stronger. The cooperative continued to expand, reaching new markets, forming new partnerships, and bringing prosperity not just to Anya, but to neighboring villages as well. The impact of their work rippled outward, a testament to the power of unity, hard work, and vision. As the years passed, Anya transformed from a small, humble village into a thriving center of trade and innovation. And in the heart of it all stood Kwesi, a young man who had dreamed of something bigger than himself, a dream that had become a reality, one that would endure for generations to come. Years had passed since the day Kwesi had faced Kwame Mensah in the market, and much had changed in Anya. What had once been a small, struggling village had now become a beacon of prosperity and innovation in the region. The cooperative was thriving, and its influence stretched beyond the borders of the village, touching neighboring communities and even larger towns. Kwesi's vision had become a reality, but he knew that the work was far from over. Now, at the age of 30, Kwesi stood at the threshold of something new. He had become not just a successful businessman, but a respected leader in Anya. Yet, as his success grew, so too did his awareness of the need for the next generation to carry the torch forward. It was time to think beyond his own ambitions, time to ensure that Anya's legacy would endure long after he was gone. One afternoon, Kwesi sat with Madame Abina in the same room where they had first discussed their partnership. The years had been kind to her, but even the most astute of businesswomen had to recognize when it was time to step back. "I've been thinking, Kwesi," Madame Abina said, her voice calm but with an underlying urgency. "You've built something extraordinary here, but this village, this cooperative, is not just about us. It's about the next generation. You've shown them what's possible, but it's time to make sure they are ready to take the reins. Kwesi nodded, taking a moment to reflect. He had always known this day would come, but now that it was upon him, he realized just how crucial the future of Anya was. "I know, Madam Abina," he replied thoughtfully. "But I've been hesitant. I've spent my whole life building this, and sometimes I wonder if anyone can truly take over." Madam Abina smiled gently. "You've taught them well, Kwesi. The youth of Anya are bright, eager to learn, and ready to take on more responsibility. It's your job to mentor them, to show them the path. Let them learn, but also give them the space to make their own decisions. You've done your part." Kwesi thought about the younger members of the cooperative. Amina, the young woman who had worked her way up from a novice farmer to an expert in crop management, Kofi, a talented bookkeeper who had learned the intricacies of finance under Kwesi's tutelage, and Nia, the daughter of one of the cooperative's founding members, who had shown a keen interest in leadership and problem-solving. They were the future of the cooperative, and Kwesi realized that it was time for them to step forward. Kwesi's decision to step back was not an easy one. As the months passed, he gradually began to give more responsibility to the younger leaders within the cooperative. He had always trusted them, but now he had to rely on them in ways he never had before. The first real test came when a large order from a regional buyer was placed with the cooperative. The buyer was interested in purchasing a significant quantity of the cooperative's produce to sell in larger markets. It was a deal that could elevate Anya's reputation even further, but it came with risks. The logistics of fulfilling such an order would require meticulous planning, efficient production, and seamless coordination between the farmers, the storage facilities, and the distribution network. Kwesi turned to Kofi, Amina, and Nia, putting them in charge of overseeing the order's execution. While he would still be available for advice, he was determined not to intervene unless absolutely necessary. Amina took charge of the farming operations, ensuring that the cooperative's crops were harvested in time. Kofi organized the financial side of things, negotiating prices, calculating costs, and ensuring that the cooperative was paid on time. Nia oversaw the logistics, coordinating the transportation of goods and liaising with the buyer. The weeks leading up to the order's fulfillment were tense. There were moments when it seemed that the operation might fail. A shipment of fertilizers arrived late, and a truck carrying part of the produce broke down on the way to the market. But each time Amina, Kofi, and Nia found a solution. They worked together, learning from their mistakes, and made sure that the order was delivered on time and without major issues. When the regional buyer received the order and was impressed with the quality and reliability of the cooperative, Kwesi knew that his decision to let go had been the right one. The cooperative had passed its first big test under new leadership. As the cooperative continued to grow, so too did the vision for Anya. The younger generation, now entrusted with the responsibility of guiding the cooperative, began to think beyond the local market. They saw opportunities for diversification and expansion into new areas. Amina, who had always been interested in sustainable agriculture, proposed a new initiative, organic farming. She believed that Anya could tap into the growing demand for environmentally friendly products by offering organic produce. The idea was met with enthusiasm, and soon, the cooperative began experimenting with organic farming practices, using natural fertilizers and crop rotation methods to ensure soil health. Kofi, always the practical one, suggested that they build an education center to train farmers from other villages. "We can teach them what we've learned," he said, "and empower them to create their own cooperatives. By spreading knowledge, we'll strengthen the entire region." Nia, who had shown an aptitude for leadership, proposed the creation of a youth mentorship program. "If we want this cooperative to last for generations, we need to teach the young people of Anya the skills they'll need to lead. We can start by offering training in leadership, entrepreneurship, and communication." Kwesi watched all of this unfold with pride. The vision he had planted years ago was growing into something much larger than he could have imagined. The cooperative was no longer just a means of survival, it had become a force for positive change, transforming not just Anya, but the surrounding region. One evening, as the sun set over the village, Kwesi gathered the community for a ceremony. The air was thick with anticipation, and the villagers had come together to celebrate the achievements of the cooperative. But this ceremony was not just about reflecting on the past, it was about looking to the future. Kwesi stood before the villagers, his heart full of gratitude. Madame Abina, now in her late 50s, stood beside him, a silent witness to the transformation she had helped facilitate. "It has been an incredible journey," Kwesi began, his voice steady but emotional. "When we started this cooperative, we had nothing but hope and determination. And now, look at us. We've built something that has not only transformed our lives, but has also inspired others across the region. We have succeeded not because of any one person, but because of all of us, working together." He paused and turned to the young leaders who had helped carry the cooperative forward. "And now, I pass on the responsibility to the next generation. Amina, Kofi, Nia, you are the future of this cooperative. You are the ones who will take what we have built and take it even further. You have the knowledge, the vision, and the strength to carry this forward." The villagers erupted into applause, and the younger generation stood with pride, knowing that they were now the stewards of Anya's legacy. Kwesi stepped back, his heart light. He knew that the cooperative would thrive under the leadership of those he had mentored. It was time for him to step into the background, to become a mentor in a different way, and to allow the next chapter of Anya's story to unfold. As the years passed, Anya continued to flourish. Under the leadership of Amina, Kofi, and Nia, the cooperative expanded into new markets, adopted sustainable practices, and inspired a new generation of farmers and entrepreneurs. The education center became a hub for learning and innovation, while the youth mentorship program helped shape future leaders. Kwesi, now a respected elder, often sat on the porch of his home, watching the sunrise over the village he had helped transform. He no longer felt the weight of responsibility, but instead the joy of knowing that the work he had done was lasting. His legacy was secure, and the cooperative, Anya, was thriving. Kwesi had given everything to build the foundation, but it was the community of Anya, the next generation, who would carry that foundation forward. And as he watched the younger leaders step into their roles, he knew one thing for certain: the future of Anya was in good hands. As the years passed, the cooperative in Anya became a model for other villages, towns, and even cities in the region. What started as a humble effort to improve the lives of a few farmers had blossomed into a movement that spread far beyond the borders of the village. Kwesi's vision, nurtured by his unwavering dedication, had sparked a ripple effect, creating positive change in places he had never imagined. The foundation he had built, though strong, had also paved the way for new ideas, new leaders, and new opportunities. It wasn't just the success of the cooperative that made Anya known across the region, it was the spirit of unity and innovation that had become synonymous with the village's name. By the time Kwesi reached his mid-30s, the cooperative in Anya had reached new heights, and its impact began to be felt in surrounding villages. Farmers from distant places came to Anya to learn, seeking the guidance of Amina, Kofi, and Nia. The cooperative had evolved into a training ground for rural entrepreneurs, offering workshops on sustainable farming, cooperative governance, and entrepreneurship. Word spread quickly. A nearby village, Birawa, had heard of Anya's success and asked to send a group of young farmers to learn about the cooperative model. What started as a small delegation grew into a regional movement, with leaders from dozens of villages visiting Anya to learn from its cooperative. Kwesi watched with pride as the young farmers from Birawa arrived. The group was led by a determined young man named Ibo, who had heard stories of Anya's transformation and wanted to replicate it in his own village. Ibo had an infectious energy, and he quickly struck up a partnership with Amina to learn the ins and outs of sustainable farming and cooperative practices. Kwesi addressed the group during their first meeting in Anya's new education center. "You've come here to learn from us, but remember that the journey doesn't end with us. What you do with this knowledge will shape your communities. This cooperative is not just about farming, it's about building a foundation for a sustainable future." Over the course of several months, the farmers from Birawa worked alongside Anya's cooperative, implementing what they had learned about organic farming techniques, efficient crop rotation, and even creating their own local cooperative. As they returned to Birawa, the transformation was evident. With Anya's guidance, the village not only improved its agricultural practices, but also established a market for their goods, which was a huge boost for their economy. The impact didn't stop there. More villages, like Akrapong and Koforidua, sent their own representatives to Anya for training. Anya had become a hub for rural innovation and development, and the ripple effect that Kwesi had envisioned was now becoming a reality. As the cooperative grew, Kwesi and Madam Abina recognized the importance of creating an institutionalized mentorship program. They worked together to formalize the educational structure, offering courses on leadership, agricultural innovations, and sustainable business practices. The education center became a center for rural entrepreneurship, attracting young people from across the region, eager to learn from Anya's successes. Nia, who had once been a promising young leader in the cooperative, now became a senior instructor at the education center. Her passion for community empowerment led her to develop new programs that focused on helping young women become leaders within their communities. The future of Anya, Nia often said, is one where everyone has the opportunity to lead, not just the men. Under Nia's leadership, women from nearby villages flocked to Anya to attend her workshops on cooperative governance, sustainable farming, and business leadership. Women who had never before had access to such resources began to organize their own cooperatives, learning from Anya's successes. The mentorship program's effects were far-reaching. As women began to take the lead in their communities, they built stronger economic systems, supported one another in ways they had never been able to before, and ultimately shaped the direction of their own futures. Kwesi was deeply moved to see how his initial vision of inclusivity and unity had turned into a powerful network of empowered individuals. While the cooperative's success was undeniable, it wasn't without its challenges. Anya's prosperity attracted the attention of large corporations that sought to capitalize on its success. Some wanted to buy up farmland, others wanted to control distribution networks. The larger the cooperative became, the more it became a target for exploitation. Kwesi had always believed that the success of the cooperative should remain in the hands of the people. But as outside pressures grew, it became clear that the cooperative's leadership needed to be stronger, more strategic, and more protective of its vision. One evening, after a series of tense meetings with a group of investors who wanted to modernize Anya, Kwesi called a gathering of the village leaders. This included Amina, Kofi, Nia, and others who had been instrumental in shaping the cooperative's success. "We are at a crossroads," Kwesi began, his voice steady but with an edge of concern. "We've created something incredible here. But there are forces that want to take it from us. Forces that want to turn this cooperative into something that serves their own interests and not ours." Amina, now one of the cooperative's senior members, spoke up. "We can't let them control what we've built. We've fought too hard for this." Kofi, who had become an expert in cooperative governance, nodded. "I agree. We need to solidify our legal position. We need to ensure that Anya's cooperative remains owned and managed by the people. We can't allow big corporations to use us for their own profits." The group discussed strategies for protecting the cooperative from external threats, including creating a legal framework that would prevent outside investors from taking over. They explored the idea of forming a cooperative alliance with other villages to create a regional cooperative that could leverage its collective power to fend off external pressures. As tensions mounted, Kwesi turned to his trusted allies. "This is where we need to stand firm. We must protect what we've created, but we must also be open to change. We can grow, we can expand, but only on our terms. The cooperative will always be about the people, not profit-driven corporations." The next several years saw Anya navigating these challenges with resilience. They formed legal protections that ensured their cooperative structure would remain intact, while also fostering relationships with other villages to create a united front against outside exploitation. The cooperative's success continued to inspire, and Anya became a symbol of community-driven progress. Kwesi's role evolved from leader to advisor. He still spent time at the cooperative, but his presence was less about overseeing day-to-day operations and more about providing wisdom and guidance. His greatest satisfaction came from watching the younger generation rise to the occasion and protect the cooperative's values. The ripple effect continued, as neighboring towns and villages began to form their own cooperatives, inspired by the example of Anya. People in distant towns began traveling to Anya to see firsthand how a community could thrive by working together. Some brought new ideas, others brought resources, and the exchange of knowledge, culture, and skills strengthened the entire region. Kwesi and Madame Abina stood at the edge of the village one evening, watching the sunset over the thriving cooperative. Anya was now a bustling town, filled with opportunity, education, and a deep sense of community. "We've come so far, haven't we?" Madame Abina remarked. Kwesi smiled, his heart full. "Yes. And it's just the beginning." Anya had not only changed their lives, but had sparked a movement, a ripple effect that would continue for generations to come. As Anya's cooperative continued to thrive and inspire change within the region, the ripple effect that Kwesi had hoped for expanded beyond the boundaries of Africa. The village that had once struggled to survive was now a global example of community-driven sustainability, unity, and innovation. Kwesi, having passed the torch to the younger generation, began to turn his focus toward a much broader vision, a vision where Anya's principles would influence and impact people worldwide. Kwesi knew that the journey of the cooperative wasn't just about local success, it was about demonstrating to the world that communities could build lasting, sustainable futures on their own terms. Anya's model had already proven to work in the heart of rural Africa, and now, Kwesi was determined to share that model on a global scale. In the years following the successful transition of leadership to Amina, Kofi, and Nia, Anya became more than just a local success story. The cooperative's unique approach to agriculture, business, and community development began to attract international attention. Leaders from various global organizations visited the village, eager to learn how they could replicate Anya's model in other parts of the world. It was during one of these visits that Kwesi received a call that would change the course of his work. The United Nations Development Programme, UNDP, had heard about Anya's cooperative and wanted to explore the possibility of using the model to improve agricultural practices and sustainable development across Africa. At first, Kwesi was hesitant. The cooperative had taken years to build, and he knew that expanding its influence could change its character. But the more he thought about it, the more he realized that this was an opportunity to spread Anya's values of community ownership and sustainable development far beyond the borders of Ghana. In 2032, the UNDP organized a global summit focused on sustainable development in rural communities. The summit was to be held in Geneva, Switzerland, and Kwesi was invited to speak on behalf of Anya's cooperative. It was an invitation he had never imagined receiving, but one that he knew he could not turn down. He had watched over the years as Amina, Kofi, and Nia had continued to grow and develop the cooperative. They had become skilled leaders in their own right, and now, they were ready to represent Anya on a global stage. Kwesi chose to accompany them, not as the primary speaker, but as a mentor, a guide to help them navigate this new terrain. The summit was a grand event, with representatives from governments, non-governmental organizations, NGOs, and social enterprises from around the world. The conference halls were filled with discussions about global hunger, climate change, and the future of rural economies. Anya's story stood out, and Kwesi, along with his team, was invited to present their journey. Amina, now in her early 30s, stood before an audience of thousands, speaking about Anya's transformation from a small struggling village to a thriving cooperative that had uplifted not only the people of Anya but neighboring villages as well. She spoke about the challenges they had faced, the lessons learned, and the importance of community-based approaches to development. "We didn't succeed because we had external investors or corporate interests backing us," Amina said with confidence. "We succeeded because we worked together, as a community, to lift ourselves out of poverty. The cooperative's success is rooted in our shared values, unity, sustainability, and empowerment." Her words resonated deeply with the audience, who were struck by the simplicity yet profound impact of the cooperative model. The questions that followed her presentation were thoughtful and insightful. People wanted to know how they could replicate Anya's success in their own countries, particularly in rural areas facing similar challenges. Kwesi, sitting in the back of the hall, felt an overwhelming sense of pride. Anya's story had left an indelible mark on the global stage. It was clear that what they had built was not just a model for Africa, but for the world. In the years that followed, Anya's influence continued to grow. The cooperative received invitations from governments and organizations around the world to share their knowledge and expertise in rural development. Several African countries, as well as nations in Southeast Asia and Latin America, began to adopt variations of Anya's cooperative model. One of the most significant partnerships formed was with a coalition of African nations, including Nigeria, Kenya, and Tanzania, to implement Anya-inspired cooperatives in rural farming communities. These countries sought to address food security, poverty, and rural unemployment through locally driven agricultural initiatives that mirrored the successes in Anya. The cooperative became a model for what was now being called community-centered development, an approach that prioritized local ownership, sustainability, and the active participation of marginalized communities. International funding, as well as private partnerships, began to flow into Anya's model, but the leadership remained firm on their commitment to preserving the community-based nature of the cooperative. Kofi, ever the financial strategist, worked closely with international organizations to ensure that any partnerships adhered to Anya's values. "We cannot allow external interests to hijack our vision," he often said. "We must remain focused on what matters, people and sustainability." As Anya's cooperative grew in influence, so did its education center. What had once been a small, modest building dedicated to local training now became a beacon of knowledge for aspiring leaders from around the world. The center began offering courses, workshops, and seminars to train individuals not just from Ghana, but from all over Africa, Asia, and Latin America. Nia, now a respected international leader in rural development, took the lead in expanding the education center's reach. She partnered with universities and development organizations to offer certification programs in sustainable agriculture, cooperative governance, and entrepreneurship. The center became a hub for innovation, where ideas for the future of rural economies were born and nurtured. "We are shaping the next generation of leaders," Nia said during a graduation ceremony at the center. The cooperative model is about more than just farming. It's about creating a sustainable future, a future where communities are empowered to lead their own development. The center's alumni network grew rapidly, with former students now working in government agencies, NGOs, and private enterprises dedicated to rural development. These alumni became ambassadors of Anya's model, implementing what they had learned in their own countries and regions. As the years passed, Kwesi watched from the sidelines as Anya's cooperative and the broader movement it had inspired took root around the world. The village that had once struggled with poverty and uncertainty was now a symbol of hope and possibility for people everywhere. Anya was no longer just a village in Ghana, it had become a global force for positive change. Kwesi, now in his early 40s, often sat quietly with Madame Abina, reflecting on the incredible journey they had taken. The cooperative had grown beyond anything they had imagined, and it had become a beacon of what was possible when communities worked together toward a common goal. "I never dreamed this would happen," Kwesi said one evening as he gazed at the horizon over Anya's lush farmlands. Madame Abina smiled warmly. "You may not have dreamed it, Kwesi, but you built it with your vision and your heart. And now, the world is seeing what is possible." Kwesi smiled, content in the knowledge that his work had left an indelible mark on the world. His legacy was secure, but more importantly, Anya's legacy would continue to inspire generations to come. As the cooperative's success spread, it inspired other communities, not just in Africa, but across the globe. Anya's principles of community-led development, sustainability, and empowerment became a guiding light for rural communities everywhere. The cooperative model that Kwesi and his team had built in Anya was now a global movement, a testament to the power of unity, vision, and hard work. Kwesi's journey had come full circle. From a young boy in a struggling village, he had become the catalyst for one of the most impactful social movements in history. His legacy was not one of wealth or personal success but of community, sustainability, and the belief that together, people could create a better world. Anya's cooperative had not just transformed the lives of its people, it had transformed the world. Years had passed since Kwesi's vision of community empowerment had spread beyond the borders of Anya. The cooperative, now a global beacon of sustainable development, had flourished far beyond what anyone had expected. Yet, as Kwesi moved further into his 40s, he realized that his work was not done. Anya, though prosperous and successful, was still a living organism, one that required care, renewal, and continued innovation. To sustain its success for future generations, Anya needed new ideas, new leaders, and a vision that would keep evolving with the changing world. Kwesi, now known as the father of the cooperative, began to see the younger generation in Anya step into leadership roles. Amina, Kofi, and Nia had taken on responsibilities that stretched beyond the village. They were now mentors, educators, and consultants for rural development initiatives around the world. But it was the next generation of young men and women in Anya who would truly determine the cooperative's future. It was during a meeting of the village's youth council, where Kwesi had been invited to speak, that he first realized the depth of the community's potential. The youth were brimming with ideas, filled with ambition, and ready to continue what had been started. They represented a new wave of thinkers, artists, entrepreneurs, and change-makers. And while their goals were different, their desire to contribute to Anya's legacy was just as strong. Kwesi stood before them in the village's community hall, now a state-of-the-art facility that reflected the success of Anya's cooperative. He addressed the young men and women seated before him, their faces lit with excitement. "I look at you all," Kwesi began, his voice calm yet filled with emotion, "and I see the future of Anya. I see the seed that was planted all those years ago, growing into something magnificent. You are the next generation, the ones who will shape this community for decades to come." Among the youth was Adama, a bright young woman in her mid-20s. She had grown up watching the cooperative thrive and had recently returned from studying agricultural sciences at a university in Accra. Adama was passionate about blending modern technology with traditional farming practices. She was one of the brightest minds in Anya, and many believed she would be a future leader of the cooperative. "Kwesi, I think we're ready to take Anya to the next level," Adama said during the meeting, her voice filled with conviction. "The world is changing fast, and we need to adapt. I want to explore how technology can make our cooperative even more efficient, using data to predict crop yields, integrating renewable energy into our farms, and creating new markets for our products. But we need to stay grounded in what has made Anya successful: community." Kwesi looked at Adama with pride. "Your vision is exactly what Anya needs. We must never forget our roots, but we also must evolve. It's the balance between tradition and innovation that will carry us forward." Adama wasn't the only one with big ideas. Ni, a young man from Anya's fishing community, wanted to build a sustainable fisheries cooperative that could provide both food security and income for the village. Kofi's younger cousin, Aba, a talented craftsman, saw an opportunity to promote Anya's traditional crafts to global markets. The youth were hungry for change and ready to experiment with new ideas, and Kwesi knew that their energy would ensure the cooperative's continued success. The challenge now was to support them, help them refine their ideas, and give them the resources they needed to implement their vision. The world around Anya was changing rapidly. Globalization, climate change, and advancements in technology presented both challenges and opportunities. Kwesi knew that for Anya to remain relevant and continue its success, it needed to embrace some of these changes while staying true to its foundational values. Adama, with her background in agricultural science, proposed an ambitious plan. "We should integrate precision farming technology into our cooperative. By using sensors and data analytics, we can monitor soil health, weather patterns, and crop performance in real time. This would allow us to predict the best planting and harvesting times, reduce waste, and improve our yields." The idea of using technology in farming was not new to some of the larger agricultural companies, but it was a revolutionary thought for small, community-based cooperatives like Anya. Nonetheless, the potential was clear. Precision farming could help Anya make more informed decisions, ensure a more sustainable use of resources, and further secure the livelihoods of its people. To kickstart the process, the cooperative partnered with a tech startup in Accra that specialized in data-driven farming. They provided sensors, drones, and software to help monitor the crops and analyze patterns. The cooperative's farmers began working with these tools, learning how to integrate them into their farming practices while maintaining the cooperative's sustainable and organic practices. One of the first successes came when the cooperative was able to predict the best time for planting maize, based on weather patterns. By using data, they planted at the optimal time, resulting in a bumper crop that outperformed previous years. As the use of technology grew in Anya's agricultural practices, other sectors began to see the potential for innovation. Ni's vision of a sustainable fisheries cooperative grew more detailed. He envisioned integrating solar-powered refrigeration systems to preserve fish for longer periods, minimizing waste, and allowing Anya to expand its market reach beyond the village. Kwesi, who had once been reluctant to embrace technology, found himself fully on board with these changes. "It's not about replacing our traditional ways. It's about enhancing them," he said, often repeating this phrase during meetings. "Technology should serve our people, not the other way around." Another crucial aspect of Anya's future lay in its relationship with the environment. Climate change was beginning to impact agricultural communities worldwide, and Anya was no exception. Though the cooperative had built resilience through sustainable farming practices, Kwesi knew that Anya needed to focus on renewable energy to secure its future. Aba, Kofi's cousin, had been researching ways to harness solar energy for the village. "We're blessed with abundant sunlight," Aba pointed out during a community meeting. "We can use it to power our homes, schools, and farms. By investing in solar panels, we can reduce our dependence on unreliable grids and lower our carbon footprint." The idea of solar energy was a natural fit for Anya. With the support of the Youth Council, the cooperative invested in solar-powered irrigation systems that could run on renewable energy, reducing the cost of water for farming. They also implemented solar lighting in the village, which extended working hours and improved safety at night. ABA spearheaded the installation of the village's first solar power grid, ensuring that Anya's electricity needs were met sustainably. As renewable energy began to power more of Anya's infrastructure, the village's environmental impact reduced significantly. The community embraced the idea of environmental stewardship, understanding that the future of Anya, and the future of the planet, was tied to the health of the land. As Anya continued to innovate and grow, Kwesi realized that the cooperative's success could not only be measured by the impact it had on the village, but also by the relationships it had built with the global community. With global markets now open to Anya's products, it was crucial for the village to maintain its identity while navigating this new terrain. Kwesi and Amina began traveling more frequently, attending international conferences on sustainable development and rural entrepreneurship. They were invited to speak at forums in the United States, Europe, and Asia, where they shared Anya's journey and encouraged others to adopt community-driven development models. One of the most significant partnerships came from a global fair trade organization, which recognized the value of Anya's products. By joining the Fair Trade Network, Anya's farmers and artisans were able to reach global markets, ensuring they received fair prices for their goods while maintaining ethical business practices. Kwesi knew that this global recognition was important, but he also understood that Anya's story needed to remain grounded in its values. "We are not here to be the world's suppliers," he said in one of his speeches. "We are here to show the world that sustainability, unity, and community are the keys to building a better future." Anya's model isn't just for Africa, it's for the world. As Kwesi neared the end of his journey as the guiding force behind the cooperative, he realized that Anya's success was no longer just about the cooperative itself. It was about creating a new model of development, one that focused on collaboration, sustainability, and empowerment. The youth of Anya had embraced these values with passion and innovation, blending modern technology with traditional wisdom, and charting a new course for the community. Anya was no longer just a village in Ghana, it had become a symbol of hope, transformation, and the power of people working together for a common cause. Kwesi, satisfied with the legacy he had built, looked forward to a future where the cooperative's values would continue to thrive, not only in Anya but around the world. He knew that the seeds they had planted together would grow into something even greater.